What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is your boy Willie Does Wrestling, back at it again with a brand new video. And of course, this is a yearly tradition. Now that every single WWE, PLE, or pay-per-view, whatever you want to call it, is all said and done for 2024, I figured we would go on here and we would give our picks for the worst match of every single 2024 WWE Premium Live event. Obviously, we did this last year. If you want to go and check out that video, that was one of my all-time favorite videos doing, so I figured we're going to make it a yearly tradition. We're going to go over every single WWE Premium Live event of 2024. We're going to go over the match cards, and then I'm going to pick the worst match of every single one. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, this is based completely off of my opinion. It definitely will not be the same as yours, so I encourage all of you to leave your thoughts for the worst match of every single WWE pay-per-view in the comments down below, or like the worst match of all 2024 if you don't want to go over every single one. If you are new here as well, be sure to leave a like, be sure to subscribe, be sure to turn post notifications on. We're going to go over all the PLEs one by one, starting with the Royal Rumble. What the fuck? Dude, no, I don't want the logo. I want I want to go on the PLE. This is what happens, guys. This is what happens. Read more. This website's really changed. So obviously we got the 30-woman Royal Rumble match. We got the fatal 4-way match for the undisputed Universal Championship. Roman Reigns, AJ Styles, LA Knight, and Randy Orton. And we got the United States Championship. We got Logan Paul versus Kevin Owens. And then we got the men's Royal Rumble match. And my pick for the worst match of the Royal Rumble, I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. It is the U.S. title match between Logan Paul and Kevin Owens. And this is mainly by default because I really enjoyed the women's Royal Rumble match. I really enjoyed the men's Royal Rumble match as well. And the Fatal 4-Way was decent. But this match, like, it wasn't at fault to any of the competitors. It was the finish that kind of made this. It was more default why I made this match the worst. Where Kevin Owens did the brass knucks, and then he covered Logan Paul. It looked like Kevin Owens was going to win the United States Championship, but the referee noticed it and called for the disqualification. Even though it was an interesting finish, disqualification finishes on pay-per-view is never my cup of tea. I don't like it. And especially with Logan Paul and how rare his United States Championship defenses were. Yeah, it's not really my cup of tea. So, holy sirens. Did someone OD? Anyway, yeah, that is why Logan Paul versus Kevin Owens is my pick for the worst match of Royal Rumble. It was more default. Like, it wasn't like the match was bad. It was more the finish. We're not going to count NXT. We're not going to count TV specials. So that leaves us with the Elimination Chamber, the second PLE. We're not going to count kickoff matches on this list either. We got the Women's Elimination Chamber for a Women's World Title shot at WrestleMania. We had Becky Lynch, Bianca Belair, Liv Morgan, Naomi, Raquel Rodriguez, and Tiffany Stratton. We have the WWE Tag Team Championship match, the Judgment Day versus the New Catch Republic. We got the Elimination Chamber for the World Heavyweight Championship shot at WrestleMania. We got Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, Kevin Owens, LA Knight, Logan Paul, and Randy Orton. And then for the Women's World Championship, we had Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax. This was a very solid card. Obviously, we also had the Grayson Waller effect with Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins on this card as well. Yeah, I'm not counting the kickoff match, so I guess really, again, by default, I'm going to give it to the Tag Team Championship match. I'm going to give it to the Judgment Day versus New Catch Republic. And the reason why I picked this is because we all knew how this was going to play out. It was the most predictable match on the card. We knew Finn Balor and Damian Priest were going to walk into WrestleMania as tag team champions. It would have been a very nice swerve if Tyler Bate and Pete Dunne were able to win the tag team championships, but we just knew it wasn't going to happen. And yeah, we went into that match being like, okay, clearly the Judgment Day are going to retain. There's nothing that is going to change. Yeah, that's really it, because both Elimination Chamber matches were good. And Rhea and Nia absolutely killed it in the main event, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm going to give it to the Tag Team Championship match by default. Again, no fault to the talents and no fault to the match. It was just very predictable, and it was basically the worst of the worst since we weren't counting the kickoff match. Then that leaves us, I am pretty sure, to WrestleMania. As we're going to do this just like we did last year. We're going to do the worst match of night 1 and the worst match of night 2. So for night 1, we had, for the Women's World Championship, we had Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch. We had the Six-Pack Challenge ladder match for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championship, where we had the Judgment Day, Awesome Truth, DIY, New Day, New Catch Republic, and A-Town Down Under. We had Andrade and Rey Mysterio versus Dominic Mysterio and Santos Escobar. We had Jey Uso versus Jim Uso. We had the 6-woman tag team match, Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, and Naomi versus Damage Control, the team of Asuka, Dakota Kai, and Kairi Sane. We had the Intercontinental Championship, Gunther versus Sami Zayn. And then we had Roman Reigns and The Rock versus Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. My pick for the worst match, it has to go to Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso. And, I feel like this match is, underrated. Overhated. But this was very underwhelming to see. It was a lot of super kick spam. It was also pretty slow. I understand the story that Jay and Jimmy were trying to tell in this match. But I feel like if they would have given this match a stipulation, it would have mattered a little bit more, because this was just super kick, super kick, super kick, super kick. This was the Uso versus Uso dream match that we were all clamoring about for years, especially ever since this Bloodline storyline. And the result of these guys going one-on-one was very underwhelming. The crowd hated it. The IWC hated it. And not long after, we had the Usos reuniting. I feel like if the match was a lot better, I feel like the Usos wouldn't have reunited as fast as they did, in my honest opinion anyway. But I don't know, man. I'm going to say Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso is the worst match of night 1 at WrestleMania. Then that leaves us with night 2, where we had the World Heavyweight Championship, Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre. And then we had the Money in the Bank cash-in. We had Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest. We had the Philadelphia Street Fight 6-man tag team matches. We had the Pride versus the Final Testament. We had AJ Styles versus LA Knight. We had a triple threat match for the United States Championship, Logan Paul defending against Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. We had for the Women's Championship, Io Sky versus Bayley. And then we had the Bloodline Rules for the undisputed WWE Championship, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. And my pick for the worst match of WrestleMania Night 2, it has to go to the Philadelphia Street Fight with the Pride and the Final Testament. Listen, this match not only didn't need to be on WrestleMania, but I feel like the nostalgia act with Bubba Ray Dudley being the special guest referee, it took everything away. It took all the attention away from the rivalry that we're supposed to care about between the Pride and the Final Testament. It didn't matter. And this this wasn't really a match that screamed WrestleMania. It was almost like, okay, this is in Philadelphia. WrestleMania is in Philadelphia. We need to give some love to the ECW fans, and we need to put Bubba Ray Dudley in there, and we need to have all the tables. And Snoop Dogg was also on commentary. And Snoop Dogg on commentary absolutely fucking sucks. We should not put Snoop Dogg on commentary ever again. And obviously there was a botch with the table as well, which took a little bit away from this match. And it did nothing for any of the 6 men involved in this match. We also had B-Fab and Scarlett get involved as well, which was okay. But yeah, this was the worst of the worst. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to give the Pride versus Final Testament the worst match of WrestleMania Night 2. And I love Final Testament. I wish that they got booked better, but I don't think that will happen anytime soon. Holy NXT. Then that leaves us to Backlash. Backlash actually was a very solid show. I don't know which match I'm going to give it to because the French crowd absolutely knocked it out of the park, in my honest opinion, as we have no disqualification tag team street fight where we had Kevin Owens and Randy Orton versus Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga. We had a triple threat match for the women's championship as we had Bayley versus Naomi versus Tiffany Stratton. We had for the World Heavyweight Championship Damian Priest defending against Jey Uso. We have for the Women's Tag Team Championship, we got the Kabuki Warriors as Asuka and Kairi Sane versus Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. And then we had for the Undisputed WWE Championship, Cody Rhodes defending against AJ Styles. I'm going to give the worst match to the Women's Tag Team Championship match, the Kabuki Warriors versus Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. It had a lot of moments with a lot of botches and everything like that. I do remember a lot of people were like complaining about the level of botches, the amount of miscommunication, especially on the part of Jade Cargill. I do remember, I think it was Backlash, the ropes were a little bit slippery, and I believe Jade Cargill was trying to go for a springboard maneuver, but it didn't work out in her favor, and there was a lot of miscommunication between the women involved in this matchup. Sure, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill won the belts in this match, but it was a little bit messy. And even then, this card was very solid as well. I had to give it to this match in specific. There's not a lot I could really say about this matchup besides botches and miscommunication between the ladies. I have to give this to the Women's Tag Team Championship match, Kabuki Warriors versus Bianca and Jade. And that leaves us to King and Queen of the Ring. And I will read the card. So obviously we had the kickoff match. We're not going to count that. For the Women's World Championship, we had Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan. Triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship, Sami Zayn defending against Bronson Reed and Chad Gable. We had the Queen of the Ring Finals, Lyra Valkyria versus Nia Jax. We had the King of the Ring Finals, Gunther versus Randy Orton. And for the Undisputed WWE Championship, we had Cody Rhodes versus Logan Paul. I already know this is going to get me a lot of hate, but this is purely because of the finish. It's not the match overall. I'm going to have to give it to Gunther versus Randy Orton because that pinfall was terrible. I don't know if it was a shoot. I don't know if it was a work because they probably wanted to, run back Gunther versus Randy Orton. But that pinfall was god-awful. It was clear as day Randy Orton's shoulders were up. But the match was over anyway. Gunther won the King of the Ring. The match, overall, was solid. The match overall was a pretty good match, but that finish took it all away from me. It didn't feel like Gunther deserved the King of the Ring crown. Well, obviously he did, but it was because the shoulders were way up. You think if you're a referee, you'd be able to notice that, but clearly the direction that WWE wanted to go was having Gunther steal the victory. It wasn't really the satisfying ending, so I'm gonna have to give it to Gunther versus Randy Orton, worst match of King and Queen of the Ring. Then we go on to the next pay-per-view, which is Clash at the Castle. As we had in this show an I Quit match for the Undisputed WWE Championship. We had Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles. We had the Triple Threat Tag Team match for the Women's Tag Team Championship. We had Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill versus the Unholy Union and versus Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. We had for the Intercontinental Championship, Sami Zayn versus Chad Gable. We had for the Women's Championship, Bayley defending against Piper Niven. And for the World Heavyweight Championship, Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre. I don't know which one I am going to pick. I'm going to give it, honestly, it pains me because I'm glad that Piper Niven got to wrestle in Scotland. Don't get me wrong, but obviously all of us knew going into this Bayley was going to retain. This was purely just so that way they could be like, here, Piper, you get to wrestle in your home country. They did the same thing with Indy Hartwell at the Elimination Chamber. And yeah, I'm only doing this because it was predictable. It was a decent match. I don't know. It was just predictable. It wasn't interesting to me, and that's really it. I mean, all these pay-per-view cards are solid, and it pains me to give it to this. But I'm gonna say, Bayley versus Piper Niven has to be the worst or the most predictable match of Clash at the Castle. And that's all there is to it. Again, no fault to the two talents involved in this match. It was just predictable. And we got Money in the Bank. I already know which one I'm going to give this to, honestly. We have the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. We had Andrade versus Carmelo Hayes versus Chad Gable versus Drew McIntyre versus Jey Uso versus LA Knight. We had the Intercontinental Championship, Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker. We had a triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship. We had Damian Priest versus Seth Rollins, and Drew McIntyre cashed in. We had the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. We had Chelsea Green, Io Sky, Lyra Valkyria, Naomi, Tiffany Stratton, and Zoe Stark. And then we had the six-man tag team match, Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, and Randy Orton versus Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and Tama Tonga. And this match, it has to go to the World Heavyweight Championship match, and we all know why. The pinfall botch with Seth Rollins hitting a Falcon Arrow on Damian Priest, and 1, 2, 3. But obviously Damian Priest was supposed to kick out. The match continued, and then we had Drew McIntyre cashing in on the same night, wasting the briefcase because CM Punk comes in and costs Drew McIntyre. And listen, I understand, CM Punk and Drew McIntyre had the rivalry of the year, but you didn't need to waste the Money in the Bank contract on that because it's just a waste. You had so many other talents in that match that could have benefited more being Mr. Money in the Bank than just another failed cash-in. McIntyre cashing in the middle of a match anyway. So Punk attacks Drew. Damian Priest takes advantage and retains the World Championship. Hated it. I remember being so mad when the event took place because I was so excited that McIntyre was Mr. Money in the Bank. And then obviously I completely forgot that this was just a ploy to continue the CM Punk storyline. And then obviously the botch left everyone confused when, Rollins basically pinned Damian Priest. So, yeah, the world title match has to be worst match of Money in the Bank. Then we go on to SummerSlam. SummerSlam. As we had the Women's World Championship match, we had Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley. Then we had the Intercontinental Championship, Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker. The United States Championship match, Logan Paul and LA Knight. The Women's Championship, Bayley versus Nia Jax. We had CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre, with the special guest referee being Seth Rollins. We had the World Heavyweight Championship, Damian Priest versus Gunther. And then we had Bloodline Rules for the WWE Championship, Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa. I don't know which one to give it. Honestly, I might give it, and I know everyone's going to be mad about this one, but this is in terms of the overall match. I'm going to give it to the Bloodline Rules match for the WWE Championship, Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa. It didn't have the same effect, obviously. It will never top the Bloodline Rules match at WrestleMania 40, and it was Solo Sikoa, and we knew that Solo wasn't going to win the WWE Championship. The overall match was underwhelming, predictable. The only saving grace for this match, and I feel like it'd be cheating to leave this match out, is because of Roman Reigns' return. The only saving grace of this match was Roman Reigns returning to WWE. The overall match, besides that, was underwhelming. Oh, look at that. There's Tama Tonga, Tangaloa, and Jacob Fatu. Oh, there's Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. Who would have seen that coming? The only thing was Roman Reigns. And even then, we all knew Roman was going to come back in that match as well, but the crowd still went nuts. The crowd still loved that Roman Reigns returned, so can't really complain about that. But the overall match, it was underwhelming. It was predictable. I didn't like it. I only liked it for Roman Reigns. So, yeah, I'm going to give it to Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa for me, to be quite honest. And I know people are going to be mad about that. And I might have some not so happy people in the comments because of that. I don't really care. Then we got Bash in Berlin, as we had the Undisputed WWE Championship. We had Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens. We had the Women's Tag Team Championship. We had the Unholy Union versus Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill. We had CM Punk and Drew McIntyre in a strap match. We had a mixed tag team match, the Terror Twins, Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley versus the Judgment Day, Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan. And then we had the World Heavyweight Championship, Gunther versus Randy Orton. I am going to give this to... I'm going to give this to the mixed tag team match, because this had no reason to really be on the card. And I don't know about you, but at this point I was already sick about Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. It was very predictable that Rhea was going to pin Liv in this match as well, just to be like, oh, look at that, I get a rematch for the Women's World Championship. Oh my God, we're going to see Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan yet again. And then we have Dirty Dom and Damian Priest. Cool. Because I already knew that they were going to milk this feud dry. I didn't care too much about this match when it got announced. And sure, okay, you also had the Women's Tag Team title match on there I could have given this to. I don't care. I didn't like this match in the slightest. I honestly didn't really watch it. I didn't care about it. I was just like, no, I'm not. I don't care. I was over this Judgment Day overexposure. I made a whole video about it, and Judgment Day are still running around doing bullshit. Yeah, that's why I'm giving this. It's more my personal bias. I'm giving it to the Terror Twins versus the Judgment Day for Bash and Berlin. That's all I'm going to say about that. Then we go on to Bad Blood. Oh, what a show. What a show. It's going to be Bad Blood as we have Hell in a Cell, CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre. For the WWE Women's Championship, we had Nia Jax versus Bayley. We had Damian Priest versus Finn Balor. We had the Women's World Championship, Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley with Dominic Mysterio hanging from a shark cage. And then the tag team main event, Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. I am going to give this match, I'm going to give it to the Women's World Championship, Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley with Dominic Mysterio hanging on a shark cage. And the finish, that finish was god-awful. And listen, it was great, for the moment when Raquel Rodriguez came back to WWE, turning on Rhea Ripley, aligning herself with Liv Morgan in the Judgment Day. But the execution of it, like we had Dominic Mysterio hanging from a shark cage, which could have easily gone wrong. And then we had Rhea beating Dominic Mysterio with a kendo stick. And then Raquel comes in. Referee right there can see Raquel beating the hell out of Rhea. Doesn't ring the bell immediately, but Raquel Rodriguez brings Rhea back in the ring, and then all of a sudden the bell rings. It's a DQ. Like I said earlier in the video, DQ finishes is never my cup of tea on a pay-per-view. Sure, an episode of Raw, episode of SmackDown, episode of NXT, cool. DQ finishes in a pay-per-view, I always hate it. But this also added to that because the referee was right there. You couldn't have saved it for the end of the match if you wanted to, or something. Nope. Raquel attacks Rhea, plain view of the referee. It's a disqualification, and that is it. That is why I am going to give it to the Women's World Championship, worst match of Bad Blood. And then we go on to Crown Jewel, as we had the six-man tag team match, the Bloodline, Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu versus Roman Reigns and the Usos. Then we had for the Women's Tag Team Championship, we had Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair versus Damage Control versus Metaphor versus Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. We had Seth Rollins versus Bronson Reed. We had the Crown Jewel Championship match, Liv Morgan versus Nia Jax. We had, was supposed to be Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton, but they brawled, taking out officials and all that jazz. We had the triple threat match for the United States Championship, LA Knight versus Andrade and Carmelo Hayes. And we had the men's Crown Jewel Championship match with Cody Rhodes versus Gunther. I mean, I could give this technically to Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton because it was an advertised match, but it didn't happen. But since it wasn't an official match, I can't call it the worst match of the show. So, again, I feel like there's going to be a lot of people pissed at me about this match. I have to give it to the six-man tag team match, the Bloodline versus the OG Bloodline, because pinfall botch. Solo Sikoa pinned Roman Reigns 1, 2, 3, but Roman was supposed to kick out. And the match, to me, felt very underwhelming as well. It felt slow until it picked up a little bit, and then the match all of a sudden was over because Solo Sikoa beat Roman Reigns. And then, obviously, we had the overbooked shit after the match because we had Sami Zayn getting involved, acting like he was going to join the new Bloodline, but he actually was siding with the OG Bloodline. And then hitting the Huluva kick on Roman Reigns. It was all over the place for me, and it was underwhelming. And then the pinfall botch. Listen, I get it. You know, we all loved the fact that the OG Bloodline, in terms of Roman and the Usos, were back. I felt it was underwhelming. Wrong result. Overbooked. Didn't like it. I'm going to give it to the Bloodline versus the OG Bloodline at Crown Jewel. Then we got the final PLE of, in terms of the main roster, 2024, we have Survivor Series War Games. As we had the Women's War Games match, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, Bayley, Io Sky, and Naomi versus Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez, Nia Jax, Tiffany Stratton, and Candice LeRae. We had for the United States Championship, Shinsuke Nakamura versus LA Knight. We had the triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship, Braun Breaker versus Ludwig Kaiser and Sheamus. We had the World Heavyweight Championship, Gunther versus Damian Priest. And then we had the Men's War Games. We had Roman Reigns, the Usos, Sami Zayn, and CM Punk versus the Bloodline and Bronson Reed. The worst match for me, it has to go to the Women's War Games match being the worst match on the show. Not only, for me, is this the wrong result and more garbage to overexpose a possible 572nd match between Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, but obviously you probably have heard all about it on Twitter over the past couple of weeks ever since this match happened. Nia Jax with the terrible chair shots. I also found there were numerous points in the match where people had to call spots in the ring and you could hear people clear as day telling people to get up, telling people to hurry up, telling people to do this, do that. It reminded me a lot of Elimination Chamber 2015 for the Intercontinental Championship, where Dolph Ziggler had to call spots because Mark Henry entered the match early and stuff like that. So it felt like it was all over the place, and it was also underwhelming for me. I felt like maybe if you were going to have the baby faces win, you should have had Io pin Liv, because now it's just obvious that we're going to get Liv and Rhea Ripley again with or without the championship. Also, having both your world champions in terms of the women lose in a War Games match, it's not for me. And yeah, all the rest of the matches on the card were solid to good at best, so it had to go to the Women's War Games match. And I know, again, there might be some Divas stands. There might be people that don't really like that. But for me, this is what I do. I piss people off. It's what I do. It's what I do best. So the Women's War Games match, for me, is the worst match at Survivor Series War Games. And yeah, that's everything, because I'm not going to do Saturday night's main event. Because, well, one, it didn't happen yet. And two, it's not a PLE. So, ladies and gentlemen, that will have to conclude my picks for the worst match of every WWE main roster PLE of 2024. What are your picks? I'd very much like to see them. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. If you are new here, be sure to leave a like, be sure to subscribe, be sure to turn post notifications on so that way you never miss an upload. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this has been your boy Willie Does Wrestling. I will see you in the next video. Be good people and peace. Later. Later. Fuck, that was a botch in itself.